Hello, welcome to yesterday's Airlines. It is the end of the month. In fact, it's the beginning of the month now, but either way, it's that period when there are lots of releases from the major brands all at the same time, and so swiftly following up the jcwings late November announcements, we now have the Phoenix December announcements, which did come out right at the end of November, but will no doubt hopefully appear before Christmas time. And Phoenix have been actually having a reasonable time of it recently, I think. I think they've been doing quite well in my recent videos. Surprisingly so, because Phoenix have not been my favourite brand for some time. Last month, I actually gave them 5 high flyers and 3 supersonics, which was perhaps getting a bit overexcited. But the photos for those models have begun to come out, and most of them look decent. And that's the reason for me that Phoenix have been getting better scores, is because they've largely been sticking to their better molds and producing less of the weaker stuff. That doesn't mean to say there isn't weaker stuff, and if you look at the pictures that I've seen of the Air New Zealand 747-400 they announced last month, you can see, as per usual, it looks awful, with a really odd nose, really high sheet line. It just looks odd. The proportions, the wing always seems too far forward, the engines are way too low to the ground, obviously the wing tips are too low. It's just all a really odd combo to make an aircraft that vaguely resembles a 747 but doesn't really look like one. But anyway, I'm not here to moan about last month's releases, I'm here to moan about this month's. So we will take a look at this month's announcements in this video. And actually, again, it's not looking as grave as I often think Phoenix releases do. I think that, again, this month has got some interesting material in it, so big ups to Phoenix for that. Before we carry on, subscribe to the channel and like the video. And check me out at Yester Airlines on Instagram and Facebook. Follow my website, yesterdaysairlines.com, and check in at 400 Scale and Detail, the Facebook group, which is a great place to show off your models, talk about them, and learn a bit about the scale from others, and as well as myself. So, let's get on and rank these Phoenix models this month. So in the last Phoenix video for the late October announcements, which turned into November releases, there were 17 models, which is quite a large number for Phoenix. This month, there's slightly less, but still a healthy 15 aircraft that have been announced. And we're going to skip through this in the usual fashion. Airbuses followed by Boeings. This being Phoenix, there isn't a lot of variety. There's nothing but Airbuses and Boeings. But we begin with a narrowbody, and this is actually the only narrowbody release in the entire month's set. And that is perhaps another one of the reasons, again, why these models are being ranked probably better than Phoenix often are. And that's because, on the whole, you've got to say that Phoenix's wide-body molds are superior to its narrow-body molds. But we're going to start anyway with an A321neo. This is in the colours of Azul of Brazil. It is the third in a little series of A320neos that they have been making. It is a Walt Disney series, and this one follows on from a Mickey Mouse and a Donald Duck pair to Donald's partner, Daisy Duck. Oh, it is a pretty unpleasant scheme where I'm coming from. It's all pink with flowers, and it's got Daisy Duck beak on the front. I have to say the Donald Duck beak looks stupid. Whenever you put a beak on the front of an aeroplane, it looks stupid. Yes, I'm talking to you, Knock. But it does set nicely with the previous pair, the Donald and the Mickey, which actually do have slightly nicer colours, I think. But you got to hand it to Phoenix. They're the only ones who are interested in doing these Disney-themed liveries for Azul. And I imagine these will be quite popular it'll be interesting to see how many people are collecting a Daisy Duck version. Yeah, I don't know. I can't take this livery seriously at all, and I would hesitate to buy it myself. But and let's be honest, I mean, Daisy Duck is hardly the same stature as Mickey and Donald, is she? But there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it. And if you look at the previous release, the Donald release, actually, the model turned out looking quite nicely. And the Phoenix A320neo is decent. You know, it's okay. It's not spectacular, but it's okay. And when you kind of hide some of its form with a lot of colours, as these schemes have, then yeah, it looks better too. So I'm sure this model will look nice alongside the other pair, and I'm sure there's going to be a market out there for it with the Disney colours. And hey, maybe this is a sort of livery that might appeal more to female collectors or to younger female collectors. I don't know. But what do I think of it? You know, from a ranking perspective, the mould is okay, but not stellar. The livery it's colourful and it's unique. Nobody else has made it, but it's not a lovely scheme that I think, oh wow, I really would like to own an aeroplane covered in a pink duck. So I can't put this one in high fly. I'm going to put this one down into workhorse. It's not, you know, ostensibly bad, but I just can't take it seriously. But perfectly reasonable release for Phoenix to do, and pairs nicely with the previous pair. Next up, it's a bit more, I guess you can't say manly, because football isn't manly, football's for everyone. But it's nonetheless a bit more grrr, in the sense that it's a World Cup colour scheme. We just had jcwings announce the Brazilian World Cup colours on that GOL 737-800. And we've got Phoenix now announcing World Cup football colours on this time on an Airlines Argentinas A330 registered LVFVH. And the scheme is nice. I'm not an enormous fan of the Argentinian national side, though their goalkeeper does play for my team, Aston Villa. But yeah, it's a nice scheme. Airlines Argentinas already has a really attractive scheme, and what they've done here is they've got the Argentinian jersey on the side, and you've replaced the tail with obviously Messi and a couple of other players. I'm not entirely sure which ones. Is that Angel Di Maria? I'm not sure. But either way, got a few players on it. It looks really cool. I have to say, it's a nice scheme. Absolutely nothing wrong with this model. I imagine it's going to be good. The only thing mould-wise that you need to say about the Phoenix A330-200 is that the horizontal stabilizers are too big. But I do have a soft spot for the Phoenix A330s. I think they're really nice moulds. And they are the sort of A330s that I tend to angle towards. If I'm getting A330s nowadays, then it's usually either Phoenix or NG. And yeah, this will be a super nice model, I'm sure. Can't say anything bad about this one. This one's going to go up into high flyer. Just because I don't want Argentina to win the World Cup, really. So high flyer for this release. Another good choice, incidentally, another one that nobody's made before, and it's nice to see some uniqueness in the Phoenix announcements for a change. And that continues on with the next two models, which are both A330-800s. So what is cool about this is that nobody else in the scale at the moment has got a mould for the A330-800. Not sure quite why that is. I know that obviously the 800 series is not very popular. There's very few of them been made. But to make one, you simply got to put the wings of your Neo onto the fuselage of your A330-200, surely. So I don't really understand why jcwings haven't done that. It'll be interesting to see if Aviation 400 do, but at the moment nobody else has, and Phoenix are the only people producing A330-800s. They haven't made many because there aren't many to make, but this month they've announced two. The first one is Air Greenland, registered OYGKN, and Air Greenland obviously has this really lovely bright red scheme. And this time around, the change in the livery is that the titles have become billboard titles. I actually knew Phoenix were going to make this model. I'd got some intel from a friend, and even had a look at their artwork for it. and it looked really good. I didn't see any problems with the artwork. There was nothing that needed correcting, and I think that this will be an excellent looking model. The Phoenix A330neo is okay. It's not quite as good as their CEO A330s because I don't like the winglets and that they've put on, the way they've changed the wings. It doesn't look as good as the jcwings Gemini A330neo, but overall it's still an okay mold, if not a spectacular one. So I applaud them for making a type which no one else is making. Greenland has got a great livery. This is going to be a super nice release. And I'm going to put it up there in supersonic, even though the mold itself is not the best mold that they could have perhaps done. What they've really kind of seemingly done is kind of worked over their A330, which is good, but maybe not got the details correct everywhere. But nonetheless, it's going to be a nice model. And the next A330-800 they've announced here, Kuwait Airways, registered 9K APG, is potentially going to be even nicer. Kuwait Airways is an airline which has been kind of ignored in 400 scale. There have been 18 models in total, which sounds like a lot, but when you look over what's been made, a lot of them are quite similar, and a lot of them are old, and a decent chunk of them are classics as well. If you look at this scheme, the current scheme that Kuwait Airways has, which is quite an attractive scheme, then the only releases on that have been a quartet of 777-300 ERs, one by jcwings and 3 by Phoenix. And nobody else has made anything. And interestingly, nobody's made, like, for example, the A320s that Kuwait Airways operate. So this is the first time that it's a non-777 in this scheme that's being made. And again, all the things about the mold I said stand, but this will be a really nice model, I think. The scheme is attractive. Again, it's a unique model, and I'm going to put this again up into supersonic because of that uniqueness, that interest factor, both in terms of the airline and the aircraft type. Now, one of the things I said about Phoenix has been in recent months that they've been playing to their strengths quite a bit, and that's good. And one of their best molds is the A340, 500 and 600 series. And they've been producing a few Series 600s recently, and they've got another trio this month. And the first one up is a Lufthansa aircraft, registered DAIHF in the current scheme. And I thought for sure that Phoenix would have made this model already, and this was just going to be a re-release. So it surprises the hell out of me that when I look at what has been made, that the only version of an A340-600 wearing this scheme is actually a Gemini release. And that release obviously uses the older seamed mold that they share with JC, and it was made in 2019, so not that long ago, and the model looks okay, but the mold is not as good as this Phoenix mold. So this model has real potential to be excellent. It's got the best mold for the type in the scale. It's never been made before. Obviously Lufthansa is super popular. All of those things suggest to me that this is, again, going up in supersonic, and I can't believe it. You know, it's 3 supersonics in a row for Phoenix, a brand that I don't usually rate especially highly. But this will be a really nice model, and it's good to see Phoenix making things they've not made before and using their best molds. The next pair, however, are also A340-600s. That's good, but there are ones that Phoenix have made a lot previously. They're both in the colours of Thai Airways. They're registered HSTNA and HSTNB. There's some minor difference in terms of position of reg, and that's about it really. Otherwise they're effectively in the same scheme, and really there's no actual, discernible difference. I think one's got looks like one's perhaps got something just ahead of the Thai tiles. Not entirely sure what that is, but it's the same thing that they've made before. They've already made, I'm just looking at the list, they've made 6 previous Thai A340-600s, and some of them have had that item, that logo ahead of, it's like a temple of some kind, ahead of the Thai titles already. So some of these date from quite a long time ago, 2013, and this is another one from 2019. So they fairly regularly make Thai A340-600s. They obviously sell well. It's a lovely scheme, great mould, but these are just re-releases. So I'm going to put these both down into the workhorse category. Now, one of the things you can be sure to get from Phoenix and also JC is a bandwagon jump. And I mean by that when a new airline produces a new livery or gets a new aircraft type, you can be sure that both Phoenix and JC will announce it pretty much at the same time. And I was just in the last video talking about the Azul A350 that JC had announced, and lo and behold, 2 days later, Phoenix also announced the same model. But obviously, Phoenix's one will be out a great deal sooner. Unfortunately, it will also be inferior because the Phoenix A350, though passable, is not spectacular. It's not as good as the JC version, which itself is not as good as the AV400 or NG version. So it's hard to get that excited about this model other than the fact that it's going to be released soon. I'd like to think that AV400 and NG will produce too at some point, and I'd probably hang around and wait until they do, but it'll probably be fine as well. It's not going to be a bad model, and for that reason I'm going to put this Azul A350 on the Phoenix mold into Workhorse 2. Last Airbus for the month is an unusual one because there aren't that many fantasy models released by mainline brands, but this time it is a fantasy, and it's another A380. I guess when you're running out of A380 liveries to make, you've got to make some up yourself to sell models, and All Nippon is an airline which is obviously very popular. They've only got this trio of A380s wearing the turtles. They don't have any others. What Phoenix have done here is they've created a fictional fourth aircraft registered JA384A, which doesn't exist, and they've got it here in the Star Alliance colours. So I guess they're going for the double whammy, hit All Nippon collectors, hit Star Alliance collectors, but the model itself is a fantasy model. Don't know really how I feel about that. This doesn't really matter. Some people like fantasy models, some people don't. I don't care about them. It's not exciting me. The mold will be great, but what's the point of it? Not really sure. I'm just going to put it in the Workhorse. You know, it doesn't upset me that people produce fantasy models from time to time, but at the same time, yeah, doesn't mean anything to me either. So that's wrapped up the Airbuses for this month. A decent selection, I think, and no really bad models coming out of that at all, and a couple of really interesting choices. So let's see how the Boeings compare. So Phoenix have 6 Boeing models for us this month, and the first one is quite unusual for Phoenix because it's almost a historical model, which you don't get many of from Phoenix. It is a Spanish registered 767-300 registered ECLKV, and the aircraft itself was operating in these TNT colours that we've got here. Not for actually that long a period of time. It appears that it was delivered to a company called Jetstar Cargo, which is actually the operator here, in around February 2011, and flew in these TNT colours. But then it seems to have lost the TNT colours, or at least most of the colours, certainly the titles, after only 3 or 4 months, and by April the next year it was returned to the lesser. So this is quite unusual in the sense that the aircraft only wore these colours for a short period of time. Having said that, they are quite nice because it's just a nice colourful freighter. Obviously Phoenix have shown some interest recently in producing freighters, 767s, and they did a FedEx 767 last month, which actually turned out to look really nice, as I think I said it would at the time. I really like the Phoenix 767, and I think that they do a good job with these, and this FedEx one, as you see from the picture here, looks really nice. So it's, I guess in that context, it's not surprising they've produced this one too, another freighter 767, and this will be a nice model. And again, nobody else has made anything like this before. I'm going to put this one up into high flyer territory. Okay, next up we're heading back to Japan, a massive market for Phoenix, and they produced a lot of models in the colours of Japan Airlines and All Nippon, and this one is a JAL 777-300, registered JA731J. It's wearing the Sky Eco colours, which I'm not sure if they're still around anymore. It's certainly in the older version of the livery, with the samurai sword-esque JAL titles and the kind of the large crescent sun on the tail. Those colours got some stick, didn't they? But I actually prefer them to the stork, it's a crane. Prefer them to the crane colours, which are just bland. But they've made this model before, Phoenix. This is not the first time that they've done this. They made it in 2009, and the model turned out looking quite nice. I'm sure it'll turn out looking quite nice again, because hey, it's a decent enough mould. I reviewed one of their 777-300s not long ago, and it looked good. So no reason why this one won't be good as well, to be honest. But at the same time, it is a re-release. It's not that exciting, and for me that means that it's going to go into, you guessed it, into workhorse, because it's just not thrilling me a huge amount, even though it's a perfectly decent model. Okay, next up we've got another airline which is getting a lot of releases at the moment. I wonder why that could be. It's Qatar Airways. I've already been moaning about Qatar Airways on the ngmodels videos, but Phoenix and NG both producing a lot of Qatar at the moment, and this one is the same as one of the NG releases from recent months. It's A7B, and it's wearing the current scheme, but with the 25 years of excellence logo. So, you know, so much disinterest from me about this model. It's just not thrilling me at all. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be fine, isn't it? It's going to be fine, but it's not interesting, and I can't talk about it. It's going to go into workhorse again. There's nothing, you know, which is making me think that it has to be gas guzzler. The mold's fine, livery's blah, but yeah, it's fine. And it's just going to go again into workhorse. So these Boeing models have not been as interesting in any sense as the Airbus choices, and that continues kind of with the next model, which actually technically is unique, and nobody else has made it, but at the same time just very uninspiring in my opinion. It's another all Nippon. This time it's a 787-8. The registration is JA874A. It's wearing the Future Promise colours, which we've had a few releases of in recent times anyway. For example, one of the 787s from last month Phoenix announced was also Future Promise, but that was on a 787-9. I've seen pictures of the model. It looks fine as far as the colours and everything go. And yeah, the Phoenix 787 is very ordinary. It's a very old mould. The wings flex is wrong, and you know, in detail it's inferior to almost all the other 787s. So this model just isn't inspiring me. Same livery, ordinary mould. You know, it's again, it's not bad, but it's not good either. It's a workhorse model. Which leaves two more 787s, neither of which I'm particularly inspired by. The first one is from MIAT, the Mongolian airline, JU1789. Phoenix is just doing what other people have already done here. JC have announced this, obviously haven't released it. NG have announced it and released it, and I've reviewed it, in fact. And the model turned out well. There's absolutely no reason or no need for there to be a Phoenix version on an inferior mould. And yeah, I just haven't got any interest in it, or because of that, because it's been released already on a better mould. I don't know why anyone would feel the need to buy this version, and for that reason, I'm going to put this one down into gas guzzler. It's just a superfluous model. The mould is, you know, it's old. It's old. It's not as good. It's not just the fact that it's old. It's just the fact that it's inferior in detail, and not even in that much detail. That one's going to go down into gas guzzler because it's just a repeat. Something that didn't need to be made on an inferior mould. Which just leaves the one model, a Saudia 787-10. The reg is HZAR265. The aircraft is wearing one of these Saudia special schemes. There are so many of these Saudia special schemes. yeah, I don't really like Saudi any more than I like Qatar Airlines. So I'm not exactly thrilled by this. At the same time, it's going to be fine. Obviously, the mold is inferior. Again, like I've said, really, for all the others, it's not going to be a great mold, but the model isn't going to be bad, and nobody else has made this livery. I'm just checking to see whether it's been made on another aircraft type by anybody else, but it doesn't look like it has. So, yeah, it's going to be fine, but it's going to be on an ordinary mold, an airline that I'm really not a big fan of, and that's just crying out workhorse, really. I don't think it's going to be gas guzzler, but it's just a workhorse model. So, a bit of a disappointing end, I feel, to these choices in the Boeing side of things. Started well with the TNT, but the remaining 5, none of them are really jumping out to me as particularly interesting. But at the same time, they don't have to. They're fairly workhorse models. The standout models in this month are clearly the Airbuses, where you've got these unique A330-800s. You've got some really nice A340-600s, and you've got that Argentinian World Cup A330. And of course, if you're a big fan of Disney, then you've still got the Daisy Duck Azul too. So there's some really nice stuff there to be had. It's a decent month from Phoenix. They've actually been showing a little bit of flair and a little bit of interest in recent months, and long may that continue. Hopefully, they will continue to produce slightly more unusual models than they have in the last few years. And yeah, this has been a good month, I think, again. So yeah, well done, Phoenix. Interesting to see whether there is an NG announcement set before Christmas. I imagine there will be. So that'll be the next one of these videos that probably comes along. But until then, or until I put something else up here on the channel, and hopefully there'll be something before then, I'll see you then.